A Cameroon with falling moral standards is a Cameroon where father turns daughter into a sex machine. He has been sexing his daughter for 5 years in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. The discovery is made by Équinoxe Television exclusively. It shall be yours in this edition of the news. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for choosing Équinoxe Radio Television. You are on to the primetime news. You are on to Équinoxe Television. We are broadcasting live from Équinoxe Central News Desk in Douala, Cameroon's economic capital city. Ladies and gentlemen, you made the right choice. We begin with our top story. A man turns daughter into a sex machine, sexing daughter since she was 9, and today she's 15. She's been sexed by her father, her biological father, in the Douala 3 subdivision. The discovery is made and investigated, confirmed and revealed to you by Équinoxe Television exclusively. The report is done by Immaculate Fogwe.
Right from the age of 9, this 14-year-old teenager who wishes to be anonymous has repeatedly been raped by her own biological father. He asked me to come into his room and massage his back. He later asked me to lay down on the bed and tried inserting his penis into my vagina. When he noticed that I was a virgin, he started using his fingers. I screamed and he started kissing me. After 6 years of continuously being sexually harassed by her dad, the 14-year-old teenager decides to confide in her stepsister about the trauma she has been going through. There is this song my stepsister loved playing. The message was about a girl who has repeatedly been raped by her father. So while it was playing, I told my stepsister that I was facing the same situation with dad. Later called my aunt, who lives in Europe, and reported my dad. But my father's sister asked us not to call the police. She said if we do so, my father will be sent to prison and he will die there. Having been unable to keep the secret any longer, one of our cousins decides to alert the forces of law and order. The mother of the teenager, who had never been informed of what was happening to her daughter, was rather alerted by security officers that her daughter has been transformed into a sex object by her ex-husband. I never thought he could carry out such an act on his own biological daughter, a child we have been praying to have for several years.
Mais j'aurais jamais su que l'amour qu'il portait pour sa fille, un enfant qu'on a beaucoup cherché d'ailleurs.
The mother later decided to take her daughter to a doctor for proper checkup. The gynecologist confirms that her hymen has been ruptured. In the course of our investigation, we tried getting in contact with the Mahop's family to no avail. On Tuesday, the suspected rapist was summoned at the Bonanjo Court of First Instance. What becomes of this teenager whose HIV/AIDS report seems positive? All she ever wanted was to be loved by her dad, just like other children of her age.
And of course, there are fears that the daughter might have just contracted HIV following medical reports. We are still investigating this story, and we shall be coming back to that subsequently on news editions on Équinoxe Television and Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, you shall be informed. And now we take you to Marwa, chief town of the Fano region of Cameroon, where a huge consignment of illegal drugs have been intercepted by elements of the Cameroonian custom. According to the head of the custom unit in Marwa, Mefojud, the illegal drugs were being transported from Marwa to Cameroon's economic capital city. More with Smart Njikan Gabriel.
240 cartons of chloroquine and 1,500 cartons of injectable tramadol were the drugs seized by custom officers of Marwa. According to information gotten, the transporters had to hide the fake chloroquine in matchboxes in order to confuse the attention of custom officials. Before being a custom officer, we had been trained on how to investigate. It is not what you saw outside. We have many other seized items in stock. We have 240 cartons of chloroquine made in Nigeria and others that were seized. The two lorries, we were told, were entering from the south region after completing sales in that part of the country. The injectable tramadol is alleged to be the most wanted drug in Marwa, even though not medically advised. Before the interception of these lorries, custom officials were already keeping 2,000 bags of sugar and 10,000 bags of cement that were being illegally transported into the country.
And we take you to Kumbai, the Mehmet division of the conflict-hit southwest region of Cameroon, where the senior division officer for the Mehmet, Tundon Chamberlain, is sending warning signals to contractors within the Mehmet division. He says contractors who fail to complete their projects within the due time in that part of the southwest region of Cameroon will have him and the laws in Cameroon to contend with. More with Smart Njikan Gabriel.
Some of them are among the over 600,000 persons displaced by the armed conflict in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. 4 years on, they are yet to have a convincing reason to return to their villages, where houses have been razed, properties destroyed and sources of livelihood interrupted by the armed conflict. Identified and in part by Belinda Babila on Widows Day 2020, these women saw their husbands killed in the northwest and southwest regions. We ran away from the war after our husbands were killed, but we feel relieved that we have not been abandoned. We believe that the days ahead will be better. The widows had the opportunity to tell themselves that they can do better even if their husbands were killed.
When your man dies,
whether you are young or old, when your husband dies, focus on what you can do. Do not be lazy and make yourself useless. Exchanges focus on their plight, financial and economic hardship, poor health, marginalization, loneliness and depression.
And we rather had a report on the plight of widows who are rather rescued and in part in Cameroon's economic capital city. That was during the 2020 edition of the International Widows Day, and most of those women are those displaced who've had their husbands killed in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon within the context of the 4-year-old armed conflicts in the two Anglophone regions of the Republic of Cameroon. And now we take you to Kumba, chief town of the Mehmet division, southwest region of Cameroon, where the senior division officer for the Mehmet, Tundon Chamberlain, is asking contractors to come back and complete their projects, some of the projects that were abandoned since the start of the Anglophone crisis. He made the call recently during a media interview granted some journalists in Buea. Simat Njikan Gabriel.
STO, I cannot go to my residence because the road is mentioned.
The stretch of road beginning from the CPDM party house in Kumba town right up to the senior divisional officer's residence has been on standstill since the contractor signed her contract to construct this stretch of road. All attempts by authorities to bring the contractor back has failed.
We have tried in vain. All the research we have launched remain unfruitful. But you can be reassured that we are going to do our best to bring that lady here in Kumba and to start. I try my best to bring her back, but she's claiming that she cannot come because the area is not secure. It is the main problem we are having if those contractors who are not living in Kumba and who continue to come and have all the contract in Kumba, knowing that they cannot execute the job.
Apart from this main project, several other projects have been abandoned in Mehmet division.
I have 3 other projects abandoned. to the abandoned project, notably the one leading to the court, the Indian Street, and a little bit also the one leading to Elongo. All those 3 contracts have been awarded, not at the level of Kumba, but by the Minister of Urban Development. Even this same contractor, I discussed with him on phone, the man is saying that he cannot come and execute because the area is not secure.
The problem of insecurity has been raised by all of these contractors, but the senior divisional officer of Meme reassures.
Within the Kumba municipality, they can execute their job without any fear. The state will continue to put at their disposal the forces of law and order for their own security and the security of their own properties.
The population of Kumba are now waiting for the promises of the senior divisional officer to be realized for them to once again move on Third Road.
A key political figure, member of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement's political party and an ally of some parties in a coalition with the CRM political party, risk a death sentence in Cameroon. Angebel Lobon-Dachwa is being accused of armed trafficking, among other charges that are ahead, who are currently in a military tribunal in Cameroon's political capital city, Yaoundé. More in the upcoming report.
Angebel Lobon-Dachwa is an accused whom, according to his lawyers, risks a death sentence at the military tribunal in Yaoundé. His lawyer, Barrister Emmanuel Sim, says he is accused, among other things, of hostility against the state, rebellion, insurrection and armed rebellion. Angebel Lobon-Dachwa is co-accused of arms trafficking following a telephone chat with an individual dating as far back as a year ago, but he has refused the accusations. His defense team and Barrister Emmanuel Sim has promised to prove his innocence before the military tribunal in Yaoundé. Barrister Emmanuel Sim says the charges gives the impression that the Cameroon Renaissance Movement's political party militant is a terrorist, whereas all is fake. Angebel Lobon-Dachwa has maintained that the WhatsApp chat is fake. His last court hearing was rescheduled while he is free, but his co-accused is detained in Yaoundé.
And of course, we talk something else now. The outgoing United Nations resident coordinator in Cameroon says the United Nations will continue to support Cameroon's effort towards development and peace building. Madame Allegra Maria Bauchi made the declaration during an audience. That's an audience granted Cameroon's Prime Minister, Chief Dr. Joseph John Gutti, this day in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. We propose you an extract of the outgoing UN resident coordinator.
Because it is the last audience, we did a little bit of a tour d'horizon. So we talked about COVID, which of course remains our priority number one, and the whole family of the UN is working alongside government on the first phase, which is epidemic control and the medical response, with WHO obviously leading these efforts. But we're also integrating the COVID problematic in our humanitarian response, which is very important. As you know, we have humanitarian operations in the extreme north, in the east, northwest and southwest. It's important. These regions are already affected by COVID, so we have worked to see how we can integrate COVID response in our humanitarian operations. And then the third pillar we talked about is the socio-economic impact. Last week, Minister May launched the national plan, the riposte, and the UN will be working alongside the government to try and support socioeconomic measures. We also talked about the work we're doing, as I said, humanitarian, and our concerns around the continued violence in the northwest, southwest, but also in the extreme north, and reiterating the message, which is the UN's message for dialogue. In fact, as you know, the Secretary General has also called for a global ceasefire to help the pandemic response. But dialogue, for us is really the solution, and again, the UN has many times expressed its full support towards supporting dialogue initiatives. And we talked finally also about peace building and development. The UN has a big portfolio around peace building, And so we talked about the different initiatives that are under that, which cover human rights, which cover the follow-up to the Grand Dialogue, social cohesion, helping youth engage in society. And then finally we also talked.
And of course, we take on this before we take on our first guest on today's newscast. Journalists from the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon have converged on Buea, chief town of the southwest region, for a sensitization workshop for media personnel and media professionals on human rights approach to communication on COVID-19 prevention and response. Journalists are coming, as I earlier indicated, from the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. The workshop is organized by UNICEF and on unknown, that is on women on the United Nations. UN Women is organized by UNICEF, United Nations Women, the United Nations Human Rights, and the Ministry of Public Health of the Republic of Cameroon. We shall be coming back to the images coming from the southwest regional chieftain Buea before the end of this edition of the news. Meantime, we are taking our first guest on today's edition of the news, Chief Dr. Joseph Mofo. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong, for being in this your prestigious program, Équinoxe, which is always the best as enlightened citizens of Cameroonians and international organizations. Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong.
All right, you have so many titles now. You are an Anglophone elite, you are a traditional ruler, you are a philanthropist, and of course a host to internally displaced persons within the conflicts in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. At a time when COVID-19 is getting deeper into Cameroon, Cameroon already has some over 12,000 confirmed COVID-19 cases. And coronavirus across the globe came when Cameroon had its problems, the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. The proof is the number of people you have with you as IDPs. How has the COVID-19 period in Cameroon affected the lives of people who live with you, internally displaced persons, who depend on others to be able to feed?
Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong. I am keeping in my palace presently so many internally displaced persons from the northwest and southwest. The measures that was prescribed by the government to the COVID-19 care, we have put the measures in strict respect. In my place as the sick is concerned, we have taken some strict measures of washing hands and the hand sanitizer. Some good Samaritan, they have offered us some of them, and the face mask. We ourselves, we have really, because among this IDP, you have all kinds of technicians among them. You have tellers, we have bought rubbers, and we have implemented as many as possible.
Okay, it means the IDPs with you, they are well armed to combat COVID-19, to curb the spread of COVID-19. So far, have you had some people, some of them, you said they are over 300, you had some of them tested positive of COVID-19?
No, up to date, we have not registered any case as contaminations of the COVID-19. We have really been fighting it seriously, even with concussions and some herbs.
The COVID-19 is badly affecting the economy. The people who live with you depend on others to be able to live. Are people still coming and who have IDPs been forgotten at the time when news, every other aspect of life is being directed and effort is being directed towards COVID-19?
Exactly, this IDP, I can say they have forgotten them because individuals cannot satisfy all their challenges. They are really facing a lot of difficulties since this crisis began. And the report has been carried to the DO of my constituency. I believe governments are still fighting and taking measures to see how they can rescue them in this kind of situations, which they have no option just to cry and remain indoor. Meanwhile, they are facing a lot of challenges as nutrition is concerned and health care.
Forgotten by individuals, by the government too. We had the president come up with special aid to Cameroonians to help them fight COVID-19. As the government so far reached you, with some items to say, oh, let's give these internally displaced people, vulnerable people, to be able to fight COVID-19?
Not yet. We are still looking forward to see what the government would do to help them in these situations.
Chief Dr. Joseph Mufo, these internally displaced persons are sons and daughters of the Northwest and Southwest regions. They are parents. They also have a say, and they at least are thinking or are watching news and are aware of the presidential plan for the reconstruction and development of the Northwest and Southwest region. The coordinator and assistants are already in the Northwest region for a 5-day sensitization mission. What are they saying? Are they okay with this step of the government, which according to some others is putting the cart ahead of the horse?
Thank you, Équinoxe Television. Thank you, the journalist. It's a very good question you are asking. Their prayer every day is that peace should reign in these two regions so that they should regain back their regions.
Okay, they want to go back.
They want to go back. They are really suffering. They are facing a lot of difficulties, Mr. Armstrong. I cannot pretend here in the studio that these sons and daughters of the Northwest and Southwest regions is where they are facing a lot of problems. Just of recent, we have equally lost one again that they accompanied. Just a week today, they accompanied the cops to the Northwest in the Bo village.
One of the IDP.
One of the IDP by name Ngong Eric, in the age of, he born 1983. He died. In fact, we are very, very sad where I'm talking in this studio like this. We have lost so many of them. Under terrible conditions, lack of medical care, lack of malnutrition, and in fact, you can imagine what they are going through.
What do they think about the PPRD, that's the Presidential Plan for the Reconstruction and Development of the Northwest and Southwest regions? The Anglophones, what are they thinking? When they sit with you, what do they tell you about this plan?
Their prayer is that the head of states and the administrator themselves, they should really do things quicker to solve the situation, because
they should hasten the development.
Yes, they should hasten the development. They should do something in a big way to help the situation so that the crisis should end, so that they should get back their regions. Okay, they are suffering.
As an Anglophone elite, you two are from these regions, though you are giving them shelter. What's your take on the plan of the government to reconstruct the North and Southwest region? At this time, it should be recalled that it is one of the recommendations of the major national dialogue.
The challenges and the problems these people of these two regions they are facing. It would be good, Mr. Armstrong, it would be very good. But the problem is this: society leaders like us should be joined in this commission, so that they should really go on the field and really understand the cries and the organs of these people on the field. Because just sending members of the government alone without joining religious leaders, civil society leaders and other organizations to really come back with the message, with the concrete message, what they have understand on the field, what they have seen on the field. In fact,
now, if the mission of these people is to sensitize, is to discuss with the people on what exactly they would love to be prioritized in terms of construction in their villages, don't you think IDPs too, those displaced, those who are in Douala and other places, should be consulted? They are part of these people in these regions. Now they are moving, or at least have they actually contacted you to say, okay, we coming to get the views of internally displaced persons who live in Makepe, what they think about the plan and what we can do for them? Because the villages belong to them, though they've abandoned their villages because of insecurity.
Don't say I have driven to your questions. You see, even in the last national dialogue that passed, I mentioned it that the head of state said they should bring out 300 citizens of Cameroonians from these two regions to join the dialogue table. But that was not done. They pick people here and there that did not understand what is really happening on the field to go and be managing the dialogue. Same thing now, people are in the Northwest to say they are to at least come in with proposals so that to end up the crisis. Mr. Armstrong, in fact, they should take credible people from that regions, people that really have seen what is happening on their lands, to at least accompany some members of the government there, civil society leaders and religious leaders. They should accompany them there. They should be at least the naked eyes, and the ear. Eye is better than ear, to really see what is happening and to enlighten them, to carry them to really points, the phones, chiefs of these places, so that they should sit together and reorganize dialogue, so that they should end up these problems and peace should reign. We have been enjoying peace for so many years, these two regions, with other 8 regions. We see no reasons today that going to a troubled moment like this one, they will carry people which they are not from that regions to go and be approaching people like phones, people like civil society leaders of that regions, community leaders of that regions, so that they should end up the crisis without sons and daughters of that regions. They can even manage the negotiation right to Nigeria, to the refugees camps, and listen to the people, hosting leaders who are there,
because they are also part of the Northwest and South.
Nothing should be neglected.
They shouldn't be neglected or left out of consultations, out of the reconstruction and development agenda. Reports or figures have it that there are over 50,000 of them as refugees in Nigeria, and over 600,000 persons have been displaced internally by the armed conflict. Chief Dr. Joseph Mufo, thanks very much for accepting to be with us this evening.
Thank you very much for your program. Thank you. It's really precious. Yours, Mr. Armstrong. Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we continue with news. We are actually taking you to understand and appraise the frustrations of vendors of tomatoes, those who see the closure of borders as a part of measures to fight COVID-19 by Cameroon and neighboring countries is negatively affecting their tomato exportation business. They were expressing their views to Immaculate Fogwe in Cameroon's economic capital city, Douala. Her report.
Tomatoes in abundance in civil markets in the economic capital, Douala. Here at the Sandaga market in the Douala 1 subdivision, with just 2,000 CFA francs, one is able to obtain a basket of tomatoes. The drastic drop in price has been blamed on the outbreak of the coronavirus, which has caused several countries to close their borders. Borders have been closed. Now we cannot transport our goods to other countries. What we used to sell for 200 francs is now given out at 100 francs. Our country is facing a financial crisis. Borders have been closed. We used to transport the tomatoes to Nigeria and Gabon, but now we cannot. Though households are happy about the decrease in price of tomatoes, traders say they are experiencing enormous losses. Gardeners are suffering. They invested a lot to have what you see now. Some of them risk being taken to prison because they are unable to pay the money they borrowed from cooperatives to invest in their farms. How are they going to pay back what they borrowed? When supply is more than demand, it is catastrophic. If we had industries that could help transform the tomatoes, it would have been better. Gardeners are really feeling bad about the situation. It's not the first time tomatoes are sold at cheaper rates, but this time around, the coronavirus has made things extremely difficult. Though tomatoes are in abundance in markets, traders say buyers are yet to start purchasing theirs. These traders are calling on the Ministry of Agriculture to support them during this period when they are experiencing enormous financial losses.
Talking point. Stay with us. We are on Talking Point and we are receiving Gilbert Ngimdo. He is a civil society leader. Gilbert, thanks for accepting our invitation.
Thank you, Mr. Fome. I'm glad once again to be on point, to dialogue with you and the televiewers, good evening televiewers, dialogue with you concerning pertinent issues that concern the country. At one point we need to be talking them, and we need to be pointing, maybe sometimes where it's painful, but we have to point them out if the country must go ahead.
You just watch a report on how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected the economy. It's actually on a large scale affecting the micro and the macro economy. Now, before you came, I was talking with the first guest on the effort and method of the government of Cameroon to fight COVID-19. I wanted to know from him how the presidential aid has so far touched some sectors of the Cameroonian society, internally displaced persons. He is a host, he has over 300 of them. He says he's not received anything that can help these IDPs who we know are vulnerable to better equip themselves on the fight against COVID-19.
Thank you. Sometimes when I hear people say the presidential aid, that expression, presidential aid, gets me worked up. It works me up a lot, because I ask myself, what is meant by presidential aid? The word presidential aid, who is the president helping? When it is categorized as presidential aid, it means the president is helping. Who is the president helping? The president is an individual. The president he leads the country with his own personality. It means that he is removing resources from his own pocket to help Cameroonians. What about resources that the country disposes? That's where my problem is. Doesn't mean that if the president does not help, or the president doesn't give help, the resources disposed by this country cannot fight this pandemic. This is a question every Cameroonian is asking, and we need answers. When I listen to people on debates on various media, sometimes some arrogant Cameroonians who have decided to hold the country down, they behave like the president is a demigod. Sometimes we should stop, reflect, and think twice, and know that that president is the one Cameroonians voted and put there, and know that that's somebody who is a servant and not a demigod to be served.
But what is just before you continue, what is called a presidential aid in Cameroon, according to the Minister of Territorial Administration, who is actually at the head of this project, who is coordinating, is money dished out by the president from his personal that's his personal money dished out as a Cameroonian. You know, many Cameroonians actually came on board to support the government's fight against COVID-19. Now the president, as a Cameroonian, as a citizen too, did something.
I think the Minister of Territorial Administration and some Cameroonians alone know what is meant by presidential help, because majority of Cameroonians don't understand what is meant by presidential help. Presidential help, helping who? He is the servant put in place by Cameroonians to serve them. How comes he is helping Cameroonians? That's a question we should ask.
He has his personal resources. The
his personal resources are given to him by the country he is serving. So where do we come from, where the president is removing money from his pocket and serving at loud-sounding sums? There is a problem at that level. Let us realize.
Okay.
It's sometimes good that when we are so dormant, we should rise up and ask questions. When the president gives or supplies the country with anti-COVID-19 material worth 2 million and above, and people are glorifying it, calling it presidential aid, and calling on people to give motions of support, calling on people to appreciate. I mean, every reasonable Cameroonian should ask himself, where did the money come from? If it is the president's gift, how did it come about? Does it mean that, and the impression officials in this country give is to the effect that that presidential help happened to be unique in nature, and in such a way that without that, COVID-19 cannot be fought by the Cameroon government. It's surprising, it's questionable, it's disturbing, and warrants that Cameroonians get up and ask what is really happening. I am a civil society leader. I do not intend, I do not pertain to any organization. I am just being curious. I'm asking why my president, the president of the republic, should the help he has given or the gesture he has given, he opened a fund where Cameroonians were supposed to contribute, but as the fund is being materialized, nobody is talking about those who contributed.
Maybe that should,
nobody is talking about.
That should be the major concern: accountability on what has been contributed so far by Cameroonians to fight COVID-19. If the government, the Ministry of Public Health, the Ministry of Territorial Administration, and other ministries concerned are able to tell us that now this is how much we've been able to get from Cameroonians, how we have been able to spend the money, and I will be able to know how much has been given by the president. Either the president, if the president decided to give in directly to the fund, the special fund created by the government, or the president decided to remove his money in a different initiative to be used to help Cameroonians. Maybe the concern should be at that level, and not if there is
no. Listen. Let me just permit me cut you at that level. This is the problem we have in this country. That is the problem this country has. You realize when the president of the republic created a special fund for anti-COVID-19 fight.
Yes.
He put into it 1 billion from CFA. Viable Cameroonians have been putting money into it. We heard of Dampolo, we heard of Nguchingi, we heard of so many people who put millions of francs CFA into this coffer. As of now, later on the president decided to come up with a special fund, which is doubtful to me and several other Cameroonians. Doubtful because when the president created a fund, he was supposed to make his own gesture there, and then not cite himself and create and cut on with another fund that is called presidential at worth more than 2 billion francs. Permit me, it is questionable, and we need to say that it is time those things are said. And
we must proceed. We must proceed. Actually, the debate is getting deeper there, but we do not have all the time. Gilbert, if you are not okay with this special COVID-19 initiative of the government, or whatever it is called, you sure will not be okay with the presidential plan for the reconstruction and development of the Northwest and Southwest region?
Definitely I cannot be, because my problem is not with those who are reconstructing the Northwest and the Southwest. My problem is not with them. I do not have anything to reproach Minister Paul Tassoum and former Mayor Donatus Njom. I don't have anything with them. These are Cameroonians who have it is very certain.
Proving it on the developmental
handwriting is on the wall that the government or whosoever appointed them knew that these are viable
people,
morally upright people who trust can be given to,
and who can help
to undertake this project.
Yes.
Minister Paul Tassoum, without publicity, is somebody I know very well. Is somebody who has proven his worth when it comes to development. Somebody who has proven his worth when it comes to building this nation without publicity. I want to say, of course, that's one of the most transparent former mayors that this nation has recorded.
Now, where is the problem?
My problem is at one level: government policy. There is a procedure in post-war reconstruction. There is a procedure. Okay. I am a history researcher. In history, in political history, in military history, there is a process when a country, a nation, or a continent which has suffered from war is supposed to be reconstructed. There is first and foremost lay down of arms on both sides, ceasefire, then negotiation, because when it becomes war, like the situation Cameroon is facing now, although we are into an asymmetric war. Asymmetric war means war between an identified force and an unidentified force. An unidentified force, we call them independent fighters. I don't want to call them separatists like it is the normal balance in Cameroon, though it is not wrong to be separatist. It suffices only you should have a reason for being a separatist, and then that reason is proven wrong or right in front of normal authority, in front of competent institutions.
Now the chronology.
The chronology is this. First, lay down arms agreeably. That means a ceasefire. Secondly, negotiations. When negotiations are done, agreements or accords are gone into, so that the terrain or the field becomes favorable for reconstruction when the two camps have agreed on the reconstruction process. I want to wonder, permit me wonder how the government is going to penetrate a field where independent fighters are still dotted in the northwest, in the southwest, and feasibility is going on. As we talk, feasibility is going on. Because Minister Paul Tasson and Mr. John Donatus has not yet started the construction. What they are doing now is feasibility. How can feasibility be going on when war is going on? And when war is going on and feasibility is going on, tell me how verifiable, tell me how true, and tell me how honest feasibility results will be at the end. It means that they are going to come up with results that will not reflect the reality of the terrain, and reconstruction risk being perturbated by this. But if something is not done to maybe render the terrain favorable for reconstruction.
Most members of government have always asked this question, that those who fight or those who took up arms in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon said they had developmental problems, they were underdeveloped areas, marginalized, and so on and so forth. Now, most of these government ministers I'm talking about, the elites of the northwest and southwest, now the question they ask is, we have always asked for development. Now development is coming. Why don't we accept it?
No, development is not coming. Development is coming within an unagreed context. Okay. Do you call reconstruction of the northwest and the southwest development? No, that's not what we call development. Do you think that the southwest and the northwest were at the level where we are now before the crisis? That is a degraded region down to almost zero. What is going on now is not called development. It is reconstruction, maybe not even up to the level where they were before.
Reconstruction and development.
No.
They say it's the presidential plan for the reconstruction and development.
Politics. Listen, Mr. For me, this is what we are saying. Forget about what the government is saying. This is what we are saying. It is reconstruction and development. But then, all of us know what our government, no, let me not say government, some Cameroonians are up to, because I have the attitude of accusing the problems of this country to personalities and not the government, not a political party, and not any other institution, but some personalities in this country. You understand? So what is happening is that some people in this country, as usual, will stand ahead, and maybe, just maybe, the reconstruction program will not even get the northwest and the southwest to the level where they were before the crisis. So what development are we talking about? It is very skeptical, and I am personally, like many other Cameroonians, very pessimistic about that. Not because of those who are put ahead, but because I'm afraid that Minister Paul Tasson and Mr. John Donatus will be pushed into problems by this very vicious government which we have in this country.
Thanks very much, Gilbert Ngimdo, for accepting to be with us. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for your very kind attention. Stay with Équinoxe Television. Programs continue.